Today, Erin Jewell from Customer Success Services is going to present on bulk import of OCI data sources. So with that, Erin, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jill. Hello, everybody. And as Jill mentioned, we're going to be talking about the bulk import of data sources inside of OCI. So before we get started, let me just say that bulk import of data sources is not something that you're going to do like on a regular, everyday basis. The normal means of creating data sources is through the manual process, where you would just go into the, actually, I need to share my screen. Just realized that. Okay. Can you see my screen now? If you can see the screen, if you can just, okay, you can see it, Jill. Thank you. So the normal way of adding data sources would be just to go into the data sources page here in OCI and click Add. And what that does for you is that just adds a data source on a manual basis, one at a time. In a situation where you would have, say, 5, 10, even dozens, maybe even in some cases, I've worked with some customers where they had 50, 60 data sources that they want to create all in one fell swoop. To do that, following a manual process gets really tedious and time-consuming. So there is a method by which you can use a CSV file that has all the descriptions of the data sources that you wish to add, and you can ingest them in a bulk load type of fashion. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We have, and it ships with the tool out of the box, most folks don't know it, but when you look at the installation path of OCI, and you go under the SandScreen directory, so I'm looking at Program Files, SandScreen, and then you go to ACQ, which is Acquisition, the binary folder under there, and then you will find a folder called ACQ CLI, that's Acquisition, it's a Data Source Acquisition CLI, the command line interface tool. So in that directory, there actually is a batch file, if I just do a directory there, and we're going to be playing with this, the ACQ CLI. So if you want to get kind of the syntax of that command, you can just do a question mark at the end of it and run that. And that shows you, you can see kind of the syntax of how you actually execute the command. The available commands you can see are add, test, update. You can list all of them, do a description, export them. Those are the commands that you can execute with the ACQ CLI, and then you pass the relevant parameters such as your username and your password and the IP address or the FQDN of the OCI server itself. So let's try to run a couple of the commands. The first one that we have here is, and this is just kind of showing you in real time the syntax that you would use. So I'm using the ACQ CLI batch file, and I'm running the ls command. That is, and you can see the description, that's going to list all of the data sources that are currently available in the system. And then I'm passing it my user credentials. So those are just the default user credentials when you install OCI out of the box. And then since I'm running this on the local machine, I'm using localhost. So when I run that, this gives me, let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Okay. So this gives me, in the first column there, each data source has an ID number, and then that's the name of the data source. And the acquisition unit tells me that the first, up to 152 there, those are local data sources, and the rest of them are remote on this particular system. the IP address, the type over there, that's the, so each vendor and the model is a specific type. So you can see, like for the Brocade switches, they're all type 77 there, even though they have different ID numbers. And then it tells me, and then the model number, and then the polling status there. So that's just to list. That's just an LS to list all of the data sources that I currently have. So if I change this command, and let's do a ls type. So I changed that. And so this is a little more scaled down. It's just telling me the type, the vendor, and the model. Okay, so it's just more of a condensed version of the previous screen that we were looking at. I can also do. I'm just going to run through a couple of commands to show you kind of what you can do with this utility. And then we can do the acquisition units if I wanted to see the acquisition units that are available. LSAU for acquisition units. So that tells me that I have, let's see, I have 4 remote acquisition units, and I have 1 local acquisition unit. So even if I go over to the OCI server itself, and if I look under acquisition units, and that's exactly what I see. I have 1 local, that's the OCI server itself, and I have 4 RAUs, or remote acquisition units. I can also do let's do a describe. Now this is actually where it gets a little interesting, and we're going to do. Let's first of all, let's go back up to our. Let's go up here and let's get one of our. Let's see, what's an interesting one to work with. Okay. So VMware. So that's ID 70. So here I'm looking at ID number 55, which is the VM data center. So if I run this command now, again, the describe command, and let's see, up. And let's do DESC, that's for describe. And then I'm going to specify the ID number. The ID equals, what number did I say? Was that 75? Is that what I said? I can't remember. ID equals 75. I think we'll try that. I may have to go back and check. So ACQ CLI describe. I want to describe a specific data source. So let's see what we get here. Oh, 75 is not. Let's try. Okay, 146. I must have had the number wrong. Let's try it again. Let's try 146 instead. Okay. So we specified the ID number for a specific data source, and this tells me that gives me that data source name, W1 vCenter, and then it gives me the properties. The thing that I want to pay attention to in this screen is the properties. So when you configure a data source, you go in and you set up all the various properties of it. So if I look at let's go back up here, and let's do, let me see, what was that name? The name W1 underscore vCenter. W1 underscore. So there's W1 underscore vCenter, which if you see in this screen, when I look right under the ID, it's ID 146, and there's the name W1 underscore vCenter. So that's what we're looking at here. And then I go into the edit window of that, and all of the configuration information under here, that's all of this information is what I'm looking at here under the properties. Okay. That's what this describe will give you. So if I wanted to change, let's see, the timeout, let's play with that. You can see right here, foundation.timeout is currently equal to 60,000 milliseconds. So I could do something like, let's change that. And I'm going to do the, let's see, ID, user ID. And then I'm going to add to this foundation.timeout equals, and let's change that to 50,000 because it was 60. So if I go back here, I can see right here the connection timeout right there is 60,000. And I probably should close that. Okay. And let's make sure my syntax is right. ID 146, admin 123, localhost foundation timeout. And let's run that. Okay. And let's see if we were successful or not. We weren't. What did I do wrong? ACQ. Oh, I know what I did wrong. We were doing a describe. So let's change the actual command to update. I was just seeing if everybody was awake. 146, 50,000. Okay. And it tells me right there, data source updated. So now if we go back to that, and there's my 50,000. It was 60 and now it's 50. And then we will just change that again back to what it was. And it tells me right there at the bottom that my data source was updated. And to confirm it, there it is. It's updated to 60,000. Okay. So that's all well and good. But where's the real power of this? Why am I showing you this? If you're going to want to, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you need to add or modify, dozens of data sources at the same time, show you how you can do that. There is I created a little batch file right here, data source add. If I just edit that, you can see with this command, I'm just using the command line call name or call executable to call this script, the ACQ CLI, and then I'm adding these data sources. So the type, that would be each data source. When you look at the describe command, let's just kind of walk through that. So if I go back, I think I've got it up here. Let's look at all of them. So if we ls that, okay, you can see in this 1, 2, 3, 4, like the fifth column over under type. You see Brocade is a type 77, the EMC Isilon is a type 110, HDS, HNAS arrays are 123. So each specific model is a different type. So when I create this script, I'm actually specifying the type. So I'm adding a C dot array, actually 3 C dot arrays, which are type 93. And then I pass them the various parameters that I want, and you get that from the describe command. So when we go back to this, what we were just looking at, if we do where's my, if I look at my describe command again, okay, under the properties, I've got, the foundation, the IP, the polling, the timeout value, all those things. that's what I specify here with this dash, storage performance enable. So I would add all those various properties to this. Okay, so let me close that. And that file was actually called Datasource add. So just a batch file. If I run that, oh, invalid data source configuration. Oh, why did I get that? Hang on a second. I got it because they already exist out here from my testing. So let me remove those first of all. All right, and let's try that again. So there I'm adding, and it's telling me the actual data source IDs that I'm adding. And now, when I refresh them, there they are. So you can see the power of that. If I had, 50 different data sources, what I could do is I would have a single line for each data source that I wish to add, and then I just run that command file, and in a matter of seconds they're all added and they can start acquiring data. Now you could, if you chose to, you could take this same syntax if you wanted to deploy it through like a PowerShell script or Python, like a for loop, something like that. You could do that as well. So I just showed it as a batch file. This is kind of really a very simplistic method of doing it that hopefully kind of shows the power of it. The way that what I have done in the past, when I have created this CSV file, what I typically do is I will take all the parameters together and I will put those in like an Excel spreadsheet, and then I use the concatenate function to actually concatenate all those various cells together, and then I save the output as that CSV file and rename it as a .bat, and then and then you're ready to roll. So that is just most of it. Some of the other things that you can do with this command, you could force a polling cycle. You could postpone a data source. If we go back and look at the ACQCLI dot, here you can see you could postpone a data source. You could export it. Force acquisition, so there's a few different options. But like I said, just to kind of reiterate, this is not a utility that you're going to use on a daily basis of administering OCI, but it is a good thing to know that it's there for those rare occasions where it might where you might find it useful. So Jill, that's pretty much all I had for that, unless there are any questions.